Our speaker tonight is Sue Carter. She tells everybody I'm like her sister from another mister. She's very dear to me, and I love her to pieces. And she was on the recent Ghana trip that we took back in September. A lot of people that are on here were on that trip. And she is going to present first and then take questions. And after she is done, we have the pleasure of Peter giving us an update of his most recent trip to Ghana, just so everybody is aware of what's going on. So I'm going to hand it over to Sue.
Thank you. Hello, everybody. So like Amber said, my name is Sue Carter, and I know it's surely quite incomprehensible to hear that I'm actually foreign and not from the United States, seeing how my name is Sue Carter and I barely have any accent. But the truth is, my original name is Sunchitsa Village, and I can spell that for anybody that wants to hear it. And I came to the United States in 2002 when I was 17 years old. Another fun fact about me, I did not learn to speak English until I came to the United States. So I'm not going to tell you my life story. We would be here for hours and hours and hours, but I thought I would hit the highlights so you can understand the underlying message that I want to bring to you today. I was born to middle-class parents in mid-80s. My life was completely normal for the first 6 years. We had birthday parties, ski trips in the winter, beach trips in the summer. My dad worked for the government, and my mom was a leather supplier for a local boutique. So that was very interesting. Having a sister who was 2 years older than me meant that I both learned and was granted the opportunity to get away with much more than she ever did. We lived in an Olympic village, and our next door neighbors and best friends forever were two Muslim boys. Their names were Adil and Almir. And we for sure thought that we were going to marry Adil and Almir one day. Then in April of 1991 rolled around, and people just insisted that we must hate Adil and Almir. My parents were total and internal pacifists, so they were not going to accept this at all. They insisted there was no force in the world that can tear up the lifelong friendships and love between Serbs, Muslims, and Croats. So we stayed in my beloved hometown, Sarajevo, until one night, Adil and Almir's dad stormed into our apartment and informed my parents that we had to leave. We had to leave in 10 minutes because they were coming to get us. So we did leave, and then we kept on leaving. So over the next 11 years, we moved 35 times.
Wow.
After all of that, I found out my best friend's father, Adil and Almir's father, didn't just risk his life to save our lives that night. He risked his life to save all of our childhood pictures, and that's the only thing that we have from before the war. Anyway, it was an ugly world back then. But in the midst of all that moving, we were struggling in so many ways, as you can understand, I'm sure. Living in communal living, dodging bullets and grenades, moving from one front line to another, and having school whenever truce was called. Earlier today, I actually was just talking to my husband, and we were discussing the lack of staples in American grocery stores like oil and sugar and flour. And I could not help but remember the time that my family and I were in an area that was at that time under attack, and we could not leave the house for 4 weeks. So in the last 3 days of the 4 weeks, the only thing that we had to eat was pumpkin butter. Weird thing is, I hated pumpkin until that time. Now I'm pumpkin everything girl. Pumpkin latte, pumpkin ice cream, pumpkin pie, everything. I love pumpkin. So another memory that often pops up in my mind is the day that I received the Operation Christmas Child box. It was towards the end of the war, and children were incredibly tired and hopeless. Then one Friday, our teachers told us that people from America and United Kingdom sent us these Christmas presents, and we were going to receive them the following Monday. So obviously, I don't think that anybody slept that weekend. Like, all of the children were just so excited to receive this. I mean, how cool was that? Here we are in a war-ridden third world country. Nobody has received any gifts in years, and now we're finding out that we're actually getting packages. Who could sleep? So anyway, Monday rolls around, and of course, my sister and I are up at butt crack of dawn, and there's like 2 feet of snow on the ground and it's actively snowing, but we don't care because we're getting our Christmas presents. That's just what's happening. But then just as soon as we saw my mother's face, we knew that something was wrong. She was tired and she was tearful. And she said to us, the path between our shelter and our school was bombed last night, the night before, and therefore we could not cross. My sister, brave heart of the family, put her arm across over my shoulder and said confidently to my mom, well, you know what? That's just fine. I'm sure the presents are going to be there tomorrow. Safety first, because that's what Mom taught us. So obviously the heartbreak was obviously reflected on my face and my eyes, despite the fact that I tried to really conceal it. Well, Mom was not going to have any of it. After just a few minutes of deliberation, she had us put our warmest clothes and stick plastic bags on our feet before we put them in our torn and worn shoes. She said, you're going to school today. And she took a really, really, really long way around the path that was bombed. And I remember with each passing minute holding onto my mom's hand on one side and my sister's hand on the other side, I thought for sure somebody else was going to get that present, that Christmas present. But we kept on going. And I remember that we just threw some snowballs and one another and laughed all the way. So anyway, we get to the school an hour late, mind you. And all 3 of us walked into my classroom first. So where I normally sat, can you hear the scratching in the background? Is that annoying? All right, let me, hold on. Hey, Nat, can you get her out? That is my dog being crazy. Okay, she's gonna get out now. Anyway, so we get to the school an hour late. We walked straight directly into my classroom. And where I normally sat, there was a box that was wrapped in shiny blue paper. So the teacher pointed to it and said, hey, that's your box. And I was like, I said the silliest thing. I said, that cannot be mine. Blue is the color of boys. Talk about gender socialization, right? So anyway, the teacher says, don't be silly. Blue is the color of Christmas too. So I sit down and I carefully, and I take my time with this box, right? I start unwrapping it and unwrapping it. And there's so much blue shiny paper and I just can't wait to get through all of it. So I finally get to the box and affixed on top of the box was a picture of a girl that looked just like me. I mean, she was just, she had long brown hair, my age. She could have been me for all I knew. So on the back of the picture was some scribbling and my teacher interpreted it as to unknown friend. From Jenny from Ohio, with love. The box was full of magic. Disney princess toothbrush and toothpaste, candy, notebooks, Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer pencils, pens, and erasers and sharpeners, tiny plush toys, and all of it was all wrapped in blue pajamas with just colorful stars of all colors. So I go home that night, and obviously I brushed my teeth like 17 times with my new Disney princess toothbrush and toothpaste. And, I put my pajamas on, and the bedtime came around, and we blew all the candles out because we didn't have the power. It's the middle of the war. And lo and behold, I we turned all the power, we blew all the lights out, and the stars in my pajamas light up. Of course, now I know that they were glow in the dark, but that back then it was simply a miracle caused by the love of Jenny from Ohio. Well, fast forward at least to quarter of a century later to last year, I'm now Rotarian Sue Carter, living in middle-class America, holding 2 degrees, working as a director of human resources. One of my favorite people in the world, Rotarian Shell Douglas, suggests that I should perhaps consider going to Ghana with Rotary. I thought, why not? So Shell informs us that she was raising money for Adeyazi Junior High in Ghana at the time, and her grant was $1,300 short. So I issue a challenge via email to my club, and I said to my club, hey, if you raise these $1,300 in 7 days, I'm going to deliver this grant to Ghana myself. I'm going to Ghana, never been to Africa. I'm going to Ghana myself to deliver this grant. Well, I copied Shell on the email, and immediately Shell replies, oops, it's not $1,300, it's only $500 now because another club came through. So of course we had raised the $500 in like 2 hours instead of 7 days. And there I was on my way to Ghana. Experience of traveling to Ghana was unlike anything I have ever lived through. And I lived through a war, as I just told you. I simply cannot go into detail because, again, we would be here for hours and hours, but I did want to tell you 2 quick conclusions. First one is Rotarians are lifelong friends. People that I traveled with and met in Ghana, I absolutely love. It was a love at first sight too. All of you all that are listening, I'm tearing up over here. I love you all. They're my family. You guys are my family. And secondly, it takes so little effort to change lives and alter trajectories of whole communities for better. I'm gonna finish this speech or whatever it is with showing you 2 pictures. So let's see if I can figure this one out. All right, so the first picture is right here. Can you all see it? You can? Okay, good. All right, so the boy lived in a village where Rotary just recently as in last 6 months before our trip, installed a well. I mean, just look at this boy. He's sad. He's socially isolated. He's uneducated, malnourished. He's ill. His life is about to change for better, though, simply because water and sanitation were brought to his community because of Rotarians. Now, I want you to look at another picture. Here's the second one. Let's look at these boys. And do you see the difference between these boys and the one that I just showed you? These are healthy, well-fed, shining with love and enthusiasm. The only difference between these boys and the one that I just showed you is that this group of guys had microflush toilets, clean water, and wells and schools for years. Schools, wells, and clean water and microflush toilets that Rotary built. They had them for years. It's a huge difference. Now, don't get me wrong, providing love like Jenny in Ohio did for me, and providing water, sanitation, and education like we have done in Ghana takes a lot of money and energy, as any of the Rotarians that went to the trip with me can testify to. But if we all unite in a single collaborative effort, that money and energy can be shared. And guess what? That's what makes it even more special. So a few days after returning from Ghana, I was just mindlessly scrolling on some social media, and I came across the meme that claimed that that particular day was Mahatma Gandhi's birthday. The meme contained one of the famous quotes: "The best way to find ourselves is to lose ourselves in service of others." And after all these years, I did find myself. It was in Rotary service to others. It's the best feelings. 5 stars. I totally recommend. That's all I got.
That was awesome.
Yay. I love you too. Peter now.
You are like family.
I do want to hear from Peter because he has updates from these guys that we saw in Ghana, which I should stop sharing.
Sure. Hello, everybody. It's great to see so many teammates online from the last trip in September. And just got back about 3.5 weeks ago. And I can tell you that we had a couple of different meals. One was rice and chicken, and the other one was chicken and rice for about a week. If you remember that, you try to be really careful when you travel over there. But so interesting to hear your presentation, Sue, and the similarities in some ways of what you're talking about. As a kid, I grew up in the Democratic Republic of the Congo, and the year that we left, there was a revolution there, and my mother was with the first U.S. State Department and then CIA. Dad worked with IBM, and they wanted to come to America one day, so we spent many years there, and that's where my love of Africa came in, and I'm going to kind of fast forward And so I always had that affinity, and one day that I would go back there and projects, and Lord and behold, there's this organization called Rotary. And you talk about being international. It's amazing how you meet people from all over the world, and then you can meet some of your neighbors when you're on the other side of the planet as well. Dad worked for, back in the day, called Eastern Airlines. So we had this wonderful thing where you get these passes, go on standby and go just about anywhere where you wanted to do. And so I guess you come to realize as a Rotarian how we're part of humanity, part of a worldwide family. I mean, coming back to home, guys, my family too, with the multiple times that we've been together. And we have a lot of things about making a difference out there in common. And that's what makes this so beautiful and fulfilling in so many ways. So this particular trip was the fourth one to Ghana, and in a completely different aspect, where we ended up kind of being what are called cadres. And for some of you that are not familiar with that term, cadre is really someone that is reporting back to the Rotary Foundation, and it's another aspect of why global grants are in so many more ways something that you can really feel safe and comfortable into going into. And the Rotary Foundation has those as well, to keep the Rotary Foundation fiduciarily responsible, to know where money is going and what's happening with those funds. So there's somebody that I had met through our group and through Walter. His name is Carl Trevelyan. He's a PDG out of the St. Petersburg area. And so ended up finding that we had a lot of other things in common with some of the business things we do, and wanting to do good in the world. And now I see Nancy Barbie sitting there in her seat. And Nancy is one of the first ways that I really got involved. I'm just gonna go into parentheses here and backtrack a little bit, but we had a district conference many years ago on a cruise ship before coronavirus. This was Corona with just the beers that we had back then. And Nancy shared about NID, National Immunization Day, that she's been doing in India for so many, many years. And it was in late November, early December that we had that, Nancy. And kind of you blew everybody away with the amazing things that you do on that trip. And she says, and I can take a couple of more folks on this trip, but we're leaving in about 4 weeks, going to India. So I thought, but is this insane to decide to go to India? I've never been over there in my life before. And why not? And so that happened, and went back for a second time, and saw just some amazing things and met a few people. And that's where I met Walter as well. And he started to share about his love of Africa. I said, Africa, I know something about that. And so you kind of see how all these pieces of the puzzle kind of fall together. But anyway, getting back on the groove here of the cadre side. So one of the clubs in Ghana, in the city of Techiman, was producing some issues with microloans that were through a global grant and working with a local bank there. And so it was kind of time to figure out what the heck was going on. So we really went there with focus to spend 4 to 5 days looking strictly at what was going on with that particular global grant. And we also visited other projects. And so to make a long story short, without getting into the weeds, so to speak, I think that it was a wonderful thing to do, because it was a way also to understand how other cadres have traveled over there and that there needs to be a really in-depth investigation of what's going on, because sometimes you can just see something at the surface, but you really need to understand the different components and the wheel that makes something either operate well or not operate well. And the more we got into it, the better we understood what happened. And the end result was that we were able to get ourselves a brand new MOU, Memorandum of Understanding, with that bank, with performance requirements and what they call consequences, which you do in business. You do it with a child, hopefully, when they grow up. You know, you can't have that ice cream if you don't do what you need to do or whatever else. But it ended up that we went beyond accomplishing what we needed to do. Their collection process was lacking in a great way, and it was sort of treating the monies coming from what they thought was a charity, and talking about the bank versus loans that they would have themselves. They would pay more attention to it. But there were some things that we had to do and that were kind of tough, but you had to do what you had to do to get it done. And so we've already started getting some collection reports, and things have really improved. But it also opened our eyes of how to do microloans in a much more effective way. And the best way would be that local communities are supporting each other. They also decide who some of those beneficiaries are going to be, because they've got what is called cross-collateralization. So you just don't get the one person who gets the loan, but the other person that's on the team has to do the same. We were blown away with some of the successes that were going on with that particular type of mentality. And it was just so much fun to see what was going on. And a lot of them were with just women that we went to see, where the husbands would be mostly out in agriculture and doing the things they needed to do. But a lot of the women were doing a lot of the hard work. So the loans were given to them, given some seeds. How much time do I have, Amber? Because, you know, I could, a few more minutes. Okay. So these loans were for baking ovens, there's sewing machines, new seeds for them to grow, beehives. So that gives you a general idea, and also microflush toilets that people would finance. And by having the cross-collateralization, and people in that group would choose who would get a benefit of those loans. So it makes us a much more powerful entity to get the money back. Typically, they would be for 6 months, and they'll vary, usually 600 to 1,000. There's a few sometimes that are $1,500. And the bank does a collection on a weekly basis. The beneficiaries also have a passbook that they end up doing electronically through the local phone company that they put in the bank. So they have a passbook, and when the collectors come, they'll check the passbook and deduct what amount that they need to put back to repay back the loan. So that's a success story that is just amazing when it's done correctly. And by learning how they're doing that, we also learned what we needed to do with this particular one that was not successful. And we had time to have some fun as well. We were with Nana Mensa, is the one who picked us up in Kumasi, drove us around, and it was amazing how much he dedicated himself to taking care of us. We got to meet his little boy, who's probably about 4 or 5 years old. You ladies would have gone nuts with this cute little thing there, who was bright and engaged, and seeing how they do things in their way. But what a pleasure. And the other highlight for me was going to the Ashoka Children's Hospital. You guys know Prince, and that whole Children's Hospital was just incredible. Seeing the amount of children that they were assisting and helping out, the way that volunteers decorated that hospital. I don't know if you guys actually went there. I know you guys went to the hospital when we were there last September, and ended up, a bunch of us went to some other stops, but that place was just amazing. And there's an American lady who left and moved over there and basically is dedicating her life to making a difference to those children. We also visited other global grant projects that were there with the last couple of days. And we were there only 7 days. I needed to get back because we had Pets Florida, which has 605 PEs. And so I had the pleasure with 6 of my other DGE classmates to put that on there with a great staff. And so we were running 1 week after the other, but I can tell you that, again, it was just an amazing experience to be there and to witness the great work that Rotary does, getting a better understanding of Rotary International and their cadres, and being amongst family and other Rotarians that are there. So that's it, and short and sweet. And I'd love to, and as well as Sue, I'm sure, to answer any questions if there are any.
Yep, the floor is open. So if anybody has any questions, fire away. You have to unmute yourself first.
Not everybody at once now, please.
I'm surprised Walter isn't saying anything.
Sue, how is your project coming with the incubators?
Let's see. So it's coming along. Grace Aloco, who's our Rotarian from Sunyani Municipal Hospital, and the Sunyani Central President, they're both doing the community assessment right now. And right before the coronavirus kind of took over America, I was scheduled to speak to many clubs in our area, and many clubs have actually committed to donating. So, you know, this has kind of put us on a stop right now, but we're hoping that we're going to get right back on track. And if all of you all are wondering what I'm talking about, I'll just take just a few minutes to explain. During our trip to Ghana, we visited Sunyani Municipal Hospital and realized that their maternity ward was incredibly small and not very sanitary, and they didn't have any privacy. They didn't have the equipment that they needed, and they had only one incubator for the babies. And so Shell, who's on the call and can tell you more about it, actually brought 2 weeks before our trip to Ghana, she was talking to Grace Aloco, and Grace asked her to bring her a baby incubator. So Shell was like, did you want me to put a baby incubator in my carry-on, or should I check it in my luggage, because that's just not going to work? Well, anyway, Shell is a social worker, never found a problem that she wasn't at least attempting to solve. So she did solve this one. She found a company called Warmilus that produces incubators that are portable, tiny. They don't use any electricity, and they can be used over and over and over again. They look like little snowsuits. And Shell bought one, or her club purchased one, and we delivered it to Sunyani Municipal Hospital, and they put a baby in it right away. And so anyway, that baby incubator kind of, and it was in memory of Shell's niece, who was a nurse in a nursing program, and she wanted to travel the world and work on child and maternal health, but she was unfortunately and tragically killed in a car accident right in her freshman year of nursing program. So her name was Haley, and so we were doing this as a Haley's grant. And we are actually asking for, we were writing a global grant, asking for about $70,000. And we're hoping to get many baby incubators, not just for Sunyani Municipal Hospital, but for adjoining clinics and midwives that go and deliver children in the communities, as well as other medical equipment that will help the maternity wards. So that is a whole other story. And I think that we're on the schedule in May. I just remembered we're on the schedule in May to talk about that. So I will give you an update then, but I hope that this coronavirus doesn't put too much of a stop to what we're doing. And thank you, Walter. Thanks for asking.
You are scheduled in May, but that's okay. Not a problem. Does anybody
Can I just
else
say one more thing?
Yeah, sure.
This has absolutely nothing to do with War Lose or my story, but you know, going to Ghana, like I absolutely loved how Ghanaians just love Walter Hughes. And I think it's just hilarious that everywhere we went, Walter was well known. Like any community we went to in Ghana, Walter was well known. And they actually developed a saying in Ghana. It goes, "Where Walter goes, the water flows," because Walter Hughes brought so many wells to Ghana. So anyway, just wanted to give a shout out to Walter.
Thanks. Love you too.
Anybody have any questions or anything they want to say?
Hi,
This
yes,
actually went shorter than I thought. Hey, Harash, go ahead.
Hi, thanks. Thanks, Amber. So Sue and Peter, thank you so much for all the wonderful work that you do, and I'm sure will continue to do. My question is, with the COVID-19 outbreak across the world, have you been in contact with the communities there, and have they been affected? And if so, what's the status? Are they getting ready for it? And if you could just give us some updates for those particular areas.
We have been in contact with them, and Ghana has, I think, less than 20 or 30 cases right now, but the testing is pretty slow. But they have stopped the whole country. Schools, churches, mosques, many businesses are closed. So it's really impacting almost every community in Ghana. And so the Rotarians are still going out and doing needs assessments and doing things, but they don't have any income right now. So it's really tough being a Rotarian in Ghana because many of the hospitals just don't have the support. I mean, Sue's talking about the incubators for the infants, but respirators and medical equipment is pretty rare throughout Ghana. So we need to keep them in our prayers.
Haresh met our DGE at International Assembly in January and met up with her in Ghana the last day. And she brought one of the ministers of public health there. And what they brought up was an awareness that they would have some really bad news coming out of the country, because you talk about a lack of hardware, testing kits. We saw that in some of the hospitals that we visited, but it would be devastating what would be going on there. And we've heard similar stories. I listen to BBC News as well, sometimes on public television, and the numbers that would lose life in Africa are staggering. So hopefully they'll be doing national stay-at-home for the whole country, because I hate to see what's going to happen. But getting back to the DGE there, she was working with that health minister to see about getting equipment and help. And so as Rotarians, I'm not quite sure what we can do there except to contact other people here, but we don't even have enough equipment in our country to take care of our own. So it's going to be pretty bad news, what's going to be coming out of there.
And I'd also like to add that, you know, Ghana is struggling with sanitation issue, and clean water is simply not available everywhere. And so things that CDC suggests we do, such as, you know, washing hands a million times a day, is just simply not a reality for Ghanaians. they simply don't have the resources to do something as simple as that. So, so like Peter said, you know, we really are hoping that it will not spread, because it will be disastrous if it does.
There is a global grant that she is doing in Ghana where this was pre-corona, but they test around 25,000 people around the country. They've got mobile equipment and doctors that go to probably about, I think they said 27 different areas, and test a lot of people, and they'll give them malaria pills or other type of, if there's borreliosis or anything else, they assist them. And they were looking for funding for that particular global grant. So that's something that we can handle and help out on. So there's just so much need over there, and you just can take on so much, you know, and that's it.
Have you or Walter talked to Prince, since he does run that children's hospital?
Well, I found out today that Nana is stuck in London.
I did meet Nana. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Walter.
But Prince, I haven't talked with him directly about this, but he's training. The next grant for water and sanitation in Kumasi is a 3-club project. So Prince and Kwame are teaching the other Rotarians from the other 2 clubs how to do this work. So he's staying busy.
And we met with him. He actually spent about a half a day with us when we visited the children's hospital. And one of the projects he's working on is to try to help out challenged children. And there is a park adjoining the hospital that is existing there. And they actually acquired some more land that they want to help kids that are, so many of them that are not taken care of. So he's got that particular kind of project that he's working on as well. So that he was sharing about that and wanting to see what we could do there. But
awesome.
He was doing well, and that man works a lot of hours every day.
Mm-hmm.
Human being.
All right. Does anybody else have any comments or questions? Well, I really like seeing everybody's faces. This was really nice. The introvert in me loves this whole thing of us having to stay at home, but like there is a small extrovert side of me that misses faces and you know, hugging. I miss hugging a lot. I love hugging my kids, but I miss hugging a lot. It's really difficult. But if nobody else has anything, I'm going to go ahead and close out the meeting. Thanks for coming. We had a lot of guests tonight, so that was super fun.